You won't agree with everyone at work, and that's completely normal. People have different experiences, different priorities, different information, and different ideas about how work should be done. A healthy workplace doesn't require everyone to agree all the time. In fact, respectful disagreement can lead to better decisions and stronger ideas. The problem isn't disagreement. The problem is how we handle it. You can challenge an idea without attacking the person. You can disagree with your manager without damaging your professional reputation. And you can stand behind your opinion without turning every conversation into a battle. So today, let's talk about how to disagree respectfully at work. 1. Listen before responding. One of the biggest mistakes people make during disagreements is preparing their response while the other person is still speaking. Instead, actually listen. Ask yourself, what are they proposing? Why do they believe it will work? What information are they using? What outcome are they trying to achieve? You don't have to agree with someone's position to understand it. Sometimes you discover that you are arguing against something they weren't actually suggesting. Listening first prevents that. 2. Acknowledge their perspective. Acknowledging someone's perspective doesn't mean agreeing with them. You can say, I understand why you would approach it that way. Then explain your concern. For example, I understand the reasoning behind that approach. My concern is that it could create additional delays. You've recognized their perspective without surrendering your own. That's an important distinction. 3. Focus on the idea, not the person. This is one of the most important rules of professional disagreement. Don't attack the person. Attack the problem. Instead of, you don't understand the situation. Try, I'm concerned that this approach doesn't account for the additional workload. Instead of, you're making the wrong decision. Try, I see a potential risk with this option. You're challenging the idea rather than the individual. 4. Use facts instead of assumptions. Disagreements become much more difficult when they're based on assumptions. Instead of, customers won't like this. Try, recent customer feedback suggests that customers may struggle with this change. Use data, customer feedback, previous results, documented examples, business requirements, project information. Evidence gives everyone something concrete to evaluate. 5. Explain your reasoning. Don't simply say, I disagree. Explain why. For example, I recommend option B because it would reduce the number of manual steps and give the team more time for the final review. Now the other person can evaluate your reasoning. A disagreement without explanation can sound dismissive. A disagreement supported by reasoning becomes a professional contribution. 6. Ask questions. Sometimes a question is more effective than direct opposition. Instead of, that won't work, ask, how would this approach handle the additional workload? Instead of, we shouldn't do this, ask, what would happen if the deadline moved forward? Questions encourage people to examine an idea instead of immediately defending themselves. 7. Choose the right time. Not every disagreement needs to happen immediately. Imagine someone presents an idea during a large team meeting. Publicly challenging them in an aggressive way could embarrass them and make the conversation defensive. Sometimes a private conversation is better. You could say, could I discuss one concern with you after the meeting? The right message delivered at the wrong time can still create problems. Timing matters. 8. Don't turn every difference into a battle. Not every disagreement deserves the same amount of energy. Ask yourself, does this actually matter? If the issue has little impact, compromise may be more valuable than proving you're right. Save stronger challenges for issues involving significant business risk, ethical concerns, customer impact, major financial consequences, compliance, serious operational problems. Professional judgment includes knowing when to speak up and when to let something go. 9. Disagreeing with your manager. This is where many professionals become uncomfortable. You may worry that disagreeing with your manager will make you appear difficult, but respectful disagreement can actually demonstrate judgment. Try, I understand the objective. My concern is that this approach could create X risk. Would you be open to considering another option? You've done 3 things. You've acknowledged the objective. You've identified a concern. And you've offered an alternative. That's much stronger than, I don't agree. 10. Don't become a yes person. Constant agreement isn't necessarily professionalism. If you agree with everything because you're afraid to speak up, your manager may never hear information they actually need. You should be capable of saying, I see it differently. The key is how you say it. A confidence without disrespect. Honesty without hostility. Independence without unnecessary confrontation. 11. Offer alternatives. If you're going to challenge an idea, consider offering another option. For example, I see a risk with option A. Another possibility would be option B, which could achieve the same objective with fewer manual steps. Now, you're not simply rejecting the idea, you're helping solve the problem. That makes your disagreement constructive. 12. Stay calm when someone disagrees with you. Respectful disagreement works both ways. You may explain your position and hear, I don't agree. Don't immediately become defensive. Ask, what concerns you about the approach? You might learn something you didn't know. Being willing to change your position when new information appears is not weakness. It's professional maturity. 13. Know the difference between confidence and aggression. Confidence says, I believe this approach presents a risk, and here's why. Aggression says, this is obviously a terrible idea. Confidence invites discussion. Aggression creates resistance. You don't need to make your opinion smaller to communicate it professionally. You simply need to communicate it without attacking others. 14. Avoid sarcasm and personal attacks. Sarcasm can feel satisfying for about 5 seconds. Then it can create a relationship problem that lasts much longer. Avoid. Obviously, that didn't work. Maybe if you had listened. I told you so. Even if you're correct, those statements rarely improve collaboration. Being right isn't the only objective. How you handle being right matters too. 15. Don't use email to fight. Written communication can easily be misunderstood. A sentence that sounds neutral in your head can sound aggressive to someone else. If a disagreement becomes complicated or emotional, consider having a conversation. Then document the agreed outcome afterward if necessary. Use email to clarify. Don't use it as a battlefield. 16. Keep the shared goal in view. One of the best ways to reduce tension is to return to the common objective. Say, I think we're both trying to achieve the same outcome. My concern is the risk involved in this particular approach. Now, the discussion isn't you versus me. It's how do we achieve the goal? That small shift can completely change the conversation. 17. Know when to let go. Sometimes your preferred solution won't be selected. Once a reasonable decision has been made, you may need to move forward. Continuing to argue after the decision can damage your credibility. You can say, I still have some reservations, but I understand the decision, and I'll support the agreed approach. That's professional maturity. You made your case. You were heard. The decision was made. Now you move forward. 18. Know when you shouldn't let go. There are situations where remaining silent isn't appropriate. If you believe something involves serious legal concerns, safety risks, discrimination, harassment, fraud, retaliation, significant ethical violations, you may need to raise the concern through the appropriate channels. Professional disagreement doesn't mean ignoring serious problems. 19. Build a reputation for constructive thinking. People notice how you disagree. Are you the person who criticizes everything? The person who never speaks? The person who attacks ideas? Or the person who says, here's the concern, here's the evidence, and here's another option? The last reputation is valuable. You become someone people trust to challenge ideas without creating unnecessary conflict. 20. Use the respectful disagreement framework. When you need to challenge an idea, remember 5 steps. Acknowledge. I understand the objective. Identify. My concern is. Explain. The reason I'm concerned is. Offer. Another option could be. Invite. What do you think? This creates space for discussion instead of confrontation. A real workplace example. Imagine your manager wants to launch a new process immediately. You believe the team needs another week to prepare. You could say, we're not ready. This is a bad idea. Or you could say, I understand that we want to launch quickly. My concern is that the team hasn't completed the final testing, which could increase errors after launch. Would you be open to giving us another week to complete testing? Notice the difference. The second response doesn't hide the disagreement. It simply communicates it professionally. Another example. Imagine a colleague suggests a process requiring several additional manual steps. Instead of, "That sounds inefficient," try, "I see the logic behind the approach. I'm wondering whether we could reduce some of the manual steps by using the existing system. Would it be worth exploring that option?" You're disagreeing without dismissing their contribution. The bigger career lesson. The ability to disagree respectfully is more than a communication skill. It can become part of your professional reputation. Organizations need people who can identify risks. They need people who can question assumptions. They need people who can contribute different perspectives. But they also need people who can collaborate. Your goal is to develop both abilities. Speak up without tearing people down. Challenge ideas without attacking individuals. Stand behind your reasoning while remaining open to better information. That balance is powerful. Final thoughts. You won't agree with everyone at work, and you don't need to. Different perspectives can improve decisions. The goal isn't to eliminate disagreement. The goal is to make disagreement productive. Listen first. Acknowledge the other perspective. Focus on the issue. Use facts. Explain your reasoning. Ask questions. Offer alternatives. Stay calm. Keep the shared objective in view. You can be direct without being disrespectful. You can be confident without being aggressive. You can disagree without becoming disagreeable. Disagreement is natural. Disrespect is not. If this video helped you, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with another professional who could benefit from it. For more practical career strategies covering workplace communication, career security, professional reputation, and career growth, follow the Work Ready Hub.